The FDA is making record-breaking history this year, and they have a new breakthrough program for medical devices gaining steam. 2022 has been a breakthrough year for the FDA, and I don't know about you, but I think medicine should be one of those things that takes time and care rather than being rushed and just trying to hurry up and release potentially life-changing introductions to all of society to act as test subjects and guinea pigs. So the Food and Drug Administration is on track to top its previous records, offering expedited regulatory consideration and, if medical device companies have their way, a streamlined path to insurance coverage, and a dozen of novel tools could be up for public release relatively soon. More money in their pockets. Yet, when it comes to the miracle COVID vaccines, everyone has their own opinion, and folks, that is fine. I respect that. Although, as new data continues to come out, it becomes increasingly more clear that a lot of things were hidden from the American public. So let me ask you, are you okay with that? Having crucial research hidden from you, especially about something that's being jabbed into your arm. And also, now that we are heading into 2023, some continue to say that inflation is under control and that things are now getting easier. But it's going to be hard to convince a lot of people since so many are stretching their money and credit to the limit just to keep their heads above water. The challenge is even worse for those who rely on SNAP, Social Security, SSI, and SSDI, food banks, and other government subsidies, as their cash flow is almost non-existent. So let me ask you this. Do you feel that they're giving us the right numbers, or is the truth being hidden from us? Comment what you think down below. And before we continue, please take a second to like this video. And if you want to help the channel get the truth out to even more people, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. All right, let's get started. So it pretty much can go without saying that the pandemic has not been kind to us. Well, that's actually a fact. And not only have we seen our way of life completely changed, some have literally seen the lives of their loved ones stopped, unfortunately. Vaccines have been called a miracle drug throughout this health crisis, but were you guys aware of the adverse effects that it has shown throughout the time that it's been given to us? To date, more than 1.4 million reports have surfaced, and of that, almost 33,000 people have died. Almost 200,000 have been hospitalized, 141,000 needing urgent care, and almost 42,000 suffering from a severe allergic reaction. Almost 4,700 miscarriages, and 61,000 people permanently disabled. That's data from the CDC. That's actual data. Vaccines have skipped clinical trials, but they're not being pulled from arms. They're actually pushing to jab more people. But some other medicines have had adverse effects, and they're pulling them from the market in a snap. So how does that even make sense? Were you also aware that a specific vaccine, the Pfizer brand, is linked to blood clotting? That's right. One of the miracle drugs could endanger your life, but you wouldn't have a nasty cough. Listen to this.
Quote, Pfizer's C-19 vaccine has been linked to blood clotting in older individuals, according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. FDA researchers crunching data from a database of elderly persons in the United States found pulmonary embolism, blood clotting in the lungs, met the initial threshold for a statistical signal and continued meeting the criteria after a more in-depth evaluation. Three other outcomes of interest: a lack of oxygen in the heart, a blood platelet disorder called immune thrombocytopenia, and other types of blood clotting called intravascular coagulation, including raised red flags, researchers said. More in-depth evaluations, such as comparisons with populations who received influenza vaccines, showed those three as no longer meeting the statistical threshold for a signal. Researchers looked at data covering 17.4 million elderly Americans who received a total of 34.6 million vaccine doses between December 10th, 2020 and January 16th, 2022.
So wait, what you're telling me is that they knew about this all along? Yep. Yes, as a matter of fact, they did. And they did not bother to tell us until months later. So they had this information by February 27th of 2021. And when were we alerted about it? Or better yet, when were we told about the possibility of pulmonary embolism and myocardial infarction, which showed a lack of oxygen to the heart? When did FDA researchers see safety signals for two, count them, two serious conditions among elderly persons after getting the Pfizer COVID shot? Well, 4 months. Yep, they waited 4 long months to tell us. Unbelievable. Now, again, I know that we don't all share the same opinion, and I love that. We should be free to think for ourselves. But this is data. This is data. And this is what they did to us. Now, what do you guys think? What do you think about all this? Should we follow the numbers, actual numbers showing these effects? Or should we believe that the vaccines do more good than harm because that's what we're being told? And what impeccable timing, right? After 54 years at the NIH, tomorrow marks Dr. Anthony Fauci's last day in office as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, NIAID. Now, this is the opinion of some, which aligns with recent online news publications, that while many were angered by his changing and conflicting recommendations, they're being considered mere symptoms of a much larger and deeper problem. Dr. Fauci's agency failed to promptly fund key research during the pandemic. That research would have abruptly ended many of the COVID controversies that divided our country. And in a study of NIH funding published in the BMJ, which is a peer-reviewed medical trade journal published by the union, the British Medical Association, found that in the first year of the pandemic, it took the NIH an average of 5 months to give money to researchers after they were awarded a COVID grant. Do you think this should be acceptable during a health emergency? Can you recall when it all began and the limited and oftentimes conflicting information was spread to us, the people? That many unanswered questions remained without good research for months, as Fauci spent hundreds of hours on television opinioning on the matter. It took almost a year and a half after COVID lockdowns began before Dr. Fauci's agency released results of a study showing the disease was airborne. Thanks for that. And since we're already talking about medicine, were you guys aware that we're outsourcing 83% of our pharmaceuticals from other countries? Does that make any sense? Doesn't that make you wonder why? Why are we outsourcing so much of our manufacturing? Imagine if we were to get into a problem with these other countries, let's say a conflict, if you will. What happens next? And this had got me wondering, how come this country is turning into a country full of coffee shops instead of manufacturing? Remember when other countries raved about buying something that was made in America? Like that was something people boasted about. But what are we making in America today? Oh yeah, that's right. We're making problems. More problems for our wallets, housing, affordability, jobs. I mean, I could go on for days, really. I'll tell you what, though. We can be our own worst enemy at times. When are people going to wake up to the reality that we can't afford to keep living the way that we've been living a few years ago? We don't have the same financial freedom we once had. Just take one look at the difference between credit card debt and our savings. That's a huge wake-up call for so many people. But still, some continue to spend. Some continue this lavish lifestyle when their wallets are crying for help, and some continue to swipe credit cards, further burying themselves in debt. And the increasing prices due to inflation and higher interest rates pushed by the Fed aren't helping anyone out. In fact, it's just causing more problems for some. Markets are also on the cusp of falling. It's like those arcade machines that have coins, the ones where you got to force the coins down so you put more in so the coins will have a chance of pushing the other coins over the edge. Yeah, but hey, some optimism is being felt as they feel that the bottom is getting closer, right? They say that home builder sentiment dropped for the 12th straight month. It's lowest since 2012, but sure, the bottom's close. I'd love for that to be true because honestly, if it isn't, I don't know how much further people can possibly fall and still maintain a reasonable level of survival. So here's what you also need to realize too. Small home builders are going to get smashed much harder than they'd want to be. And even bigger builders are going to be smacked pretty hard upside the head with this too. Have you ever dropped a glass before, like a cup or something? There's that moment where things slow down and you're frozen in time. You already know you're in trouble. The glass falling is where we're at now, with most of us powerless to stop what's happening to us. When layoffs are unpredictable and we fear for our jobs, when bankruptcies become an option, when our cash flow starts to freeze and we're not sure how we're keeping a roof over our heads, that's when things go from bad to worse. But when the glass shatters, it's going to be like landmines on the floor. You won't even know what hit you. You'll be walking on eggshells. The statement, "Nobody wants to catch a falling knife," comes to mind and couldn't be more closely aligned with the truth. It's why billionaires are now moving away from real estate. Check out what Steve Wynn, a casino billionaire, is doing right now. Folks, He just unloaded $300 million in personal real estate. And you have to wonder what he knows, or maybe he's one of the billionaires who's already aware of what's going to happen next. He and a lot of us know the same thing. The difference is he has hundreds of millions of dollars to play with. Perhaps he's going to go a similar route of other heavily funded and well-connected investors like BlackRock and others who have been attacking the low-income, affordable housing markets and specifically buying up mobile home park property and other affordable housing options only to then raise rents, evict and rezone and redevelop to build new luxury homes and condos that the indigenous residents of these communities wouldn't dare dream of trying to be able to afford. But don't worry, guys, everything's going to be fine. Why? Because they told us, right? They're telling us that even though U.S. vegetable prices soared by 38%, inflation, as they say, is under control. Under control, is it? Okay, well, then I would hate to see it out of control. Sheesh. Let me ask you guys a question. You guys go to Home Depot, Costco, maybe Target. Do you think that inflation's under control? Or are they simply feeding into the narrative that things are getting better when they actually are just getting worse? But no, households will continue to borrow on their credit cards like they have the money to spare, and then expect a bailout in the form of debt forgiveness. Now, that's not happening, folks. And if it does, it's just passing on the debt to someone else. It could go to your kids. Who knows? And it's also scary to think about what happens when things go out of control, right? So if this is what them being in control of inflation is, imagine if they lost control. How bad will things get? And no, we're not billionaires, but we are hard workers. The only people bailing us out of these financial troubles are the ones looking back at us in the mirror. It's us. Coming up next, 15 items you should buy in grocery stores before it is too late and they disappear for good. And a complete list of the biggest and top U.S. retailers closing down stores right now and other businesses and stores that are likely expected to disappear because of the recession. Until next time, folks, you all take care and be safe. Bye for now.